This is the Harmonic Motion Podcast, a place where you, dear listener, can join with automotive aftermarket professionals as they delve into and discuss the matters which matter.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Harmonic Motion Podcast. I'm delighted to be joined today by my good friend Andy Crook, and we've picked an awesome topic to discuss and kick around based on feedback and chats and generally industry chitter-chatter, and this is systems or systemization. And today we're going to pick up on the thorny issue of a garage understanding that they might want to have a new garage management system. And we're going to consider whether that's the only decision that needs to be pondered upon. So we're going to think about the decisions and the background that maybe led the garage to making that decision. And we're going to discuss some of the issues that sit below that. So buckle in and enjoy the chat as Andy and I kick around this very hot topic. So I'm delighted, Andy. Once more, thanks again for joining us on the Harmonic Motion Podcast.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here, as always.
Yeah, brilliant. And we've picked a really simple topic to kick around today: systems or systemization. And this has really been it's highlighted recently. So in a number of recent interactions I've had, particularly, it's been drawn into my focus. But I know it's a perennial one, and it sort of stems from the garage owner, manager, thinking that they need a new garage management system. Looking at some of the successes and also some of the catastrophes that happen when that happens, I thought it was a worthy topic to sort of kick around and try and understand from a garage owner's perspective, really, what sort of rationale or thought processes could be undertaken to ensure the decision to go a garage management system is the right thing for us, or not. You know, what's I'm thinking about how do they self-regulate whether that's the right decision. It's a bit of a thorny issue and a big subject, but in your experience of working with garage owners, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. It's a conversation I probably have more regularly now than I probably did in the past, and that might be because there's more choice with garage management systems, and people are becoming more aware of those choices, and they're looking out into the market, if you like, to decide which one to use in their business, and they're asking other people their opinions. So it often starts there, and I would say if you're using a paper diary and writing out invoices, then you definitely need a garage management system. If you already have a garage management system, are you sure that garage management system isn't able to fulfill your needs? And that would be the sort of the two questions I would ask. Most software is underutilized by the user. There'll be functions and features in just about every software you use that you have no idea are there, and therefore just making a knee-jerk reaction to changing your garage management software may highlight, having that conversation if you already have one, may highlight a deeper rooted problem within your business, is what I would say to begin with.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, isn't it? And I'm going to pull an analogy back to garage land. As a garage owner, you may see the malfunction indicator lamp coming in on your business dashboard, and you've got to do that initial diagnosis of what's going wrong, what's gone wrong, what isn't working, to try and then, I suppose, define what needs to be changed to make it work. There's a lot of discussion about the system. I feel often the software package that somebody's selecting seems to be visualized as a standalone entity that's going to be the answer. So we get this new shiny box of ones and zeros, and we get it into the front office and we unpack it, and it kind of just unfolds itself into the business and makes everything better. And I often see that as that's seen as maybe a panacea. But I would assume that there's going to have to be a little bit of matching the garage management system software to systems that exist in that existing business. And Yeah, I get what you're saying. If you've got nothing at all, then anything's going to be an improvement. But if you are working with a system that's giving you fundamental, rudimentary metrics and data, um, the decision becomes it's probably more complicated, isn't it, in terms of a selection process. If you're currently working with a system, diagnosing why the reasons that you're thinking about new software.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit like if we go back to GarageLand, you've got a car you can't fix in the garage, so you want to buy a different scan tool or a better oscilloscope, whatever it is. That garage has got a better computer than me. It comes back. If you can relate it to that, I would say that is possibly the greatest parallel we can draw here. If you've got to this point and you're at some sort of choke point as you see it with your existing system, is it the software or is it your business that's at fault? And then once again, if you go back to like a diagnostic parallel, often the solution is in the process of that diagnostic job rather than in the tooling. Sometimes it is the tooling, but until you've done that analysis, you won't know. And buying another tool might be an expensive doorstop that never gets used, or it might be the solution. Until you know that, until you've done that root cause analysis, you have no idea. And sadly, in both cases, whether it be a garage management system or a diagnostic tool, I think garage owners are guilty of going out and buying the solution instead of looking at the fix.
Yeah, and understanding root cause analysis there you talked about is a brilliant term, and I think would it be wise in your view for the garage owner that's making the decision to think about the reason why there is, and I guess a lot of the decisions are made from a level of uncomfortableness in the operations day to day, and the panacea may be seen as taking the pill of a new garage management system is the answer. But what kind of things could we be thinking about that may be not system software related, but where could problems be in the garage operational procedures? So can it be purely procedures, or can it be people? Can it be the situational issue where it's not distinctly one process, but where one process maps with another? There's an inefficiency of transfer of resources from the booking to the workshop or the workshop to quality control. It may not be in subsets of processes, but where are the common areas, I suppose, where the pinch points that garage owners could look, and what would you think? Visualize an outcome. How could they diagnose, if you like, where the problem lies in their business?
Right. So where the problem could lie is everywhere from the customer getting in touch with the business and the customer leaving the business with their car fixed or not fixed. Somewhere in between those two is the problem. So yeah, it's everywhere. So unless you have, as the business owner, a very deep level of understanding of the customer journey, if that's one way of looking at it, from getting in touch with the garage, or even before that, knowing there's a garage there, and getting to the outcome where they've had the repair, service, whatever done, and they've left the business with a positive impression of that business, is the answer. And if you know that, and you know how that works, and you've so the business term would be if you've mapped the customer journey and everybody knows their roles within that and what happens, and other people can look at and understand what everybody else is doing, and I think a key thing is not just being really good at one thing, but it's being good at that thing and knowing what everybody else around you does within the business for everybody within that business, and then looking at what you need to make that journey smoother is probably going to be the answer to that question, which sounds easy to say, but very, very difficult to do if you're at the coalface. If you're the person digging the coal out of the hole, you have no idea the pit pony's lame. So no. It's from a business owner's point of view, and I think what you have to do, and I've said it many times on various other platforms where I say to people, are you taking time out of your business to work on it rather than in it? And that, I think, is critical. Before you do anything, have a look at your actual processes, map that customer journey, look at who's involved where the touch points are. And what you'll discover probably is you'll find a sticking plaster over a problem that's got a sticking plaster over a problem, and then 2 or 3 processes down the line there's another sticking plaster over a problem. And if you liken it to a garden hose that's been repaired many times, you've got more Jubilee clips than actual hose and bits of copper pipe stuck in. That's probably what your business looks at if you haven't done this. And what you need to do before you buy a new hose is have a look at whether or not you can fix the existing one. And your customers, if you like, are, to take that analogy, are leaking out of the hose everywhere, and the good process could fix it, or a new piece of hose could fix it, but you don't know until you've examined the hose, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and I think what you discussed there about processes and the customer journey. I think the customer journey can almost be segmented by, in external touch points for the client. So what their experience is with drop off and collection and invoicing and communication, and then I think there's the processes that are, and I'm going to call the garage business the factory, because I believe it's a factory that's processing raw materials of cars that are in need of service, maintenance, and repair, and they're processing that through their factory operations, and coming out the back end is the issue solved and fixed. There's a load of internal processes. So inside the factory, there are processes that are kind of independent a little bit of the client journey through the business, but there's an internal business factory process, that has to be mapped as well. So yeah, I like that. I can quite see those two things linking together. It's really interesting about adaptability and how people, because I think we're talking about processes, and the process sort of has to be defined and laid out for people to know what they're doing. But the adaptability of your team as a garage manager and garage owner, if you've recruited really well, you'll have awesome people in the team. And as we know, awesome people are likely to adapt where things aren't great. How can a garage owner that maybe thinks their processes are awesome, but it's in fact the adaptability of their team that's making it, that's maybe masking the ability to get to the root cause analysis? Is that a challenge?
Yeah, and I would say the better the quality of the people, the harder it is to unearth the underlying cause. So you may have a real A-star performer that's doing something within the business. It doesn't have to just be a technician. It could be front of house. It could be a manager that's actually smoothing over the cracks all of the time, and you will only know that's happening because they're not complaining, then they're just doing it, and you're happy to let them do it. Even if you have an inkling that it's happening, you won't know until that person possibly gets the breaking point, or decides to leave the business, or even just go on holiday, and all of a sudden the wheels start coming off rapidly, and then you've got that person, because they've been so capable, has taken on more and more and more, and doing outside of their job roles and responsibilities and accountabilities more and more. The worst case scenario is they have enough and leave. You might get an inkling if they've been off for a week, that they were doing something because things didn't go well that week, but as soon as they come back, they take up the slack and all of that other stuff that went wrong, and they're doing even more. But until you identify, and I think this is the key thing, if you identify someone's job role, their responsibilities and accountabilities, and that's defined, anything they're doing outside of that is possibly a problem. And we'll go right back to the beginning then, because when I refer to attracting a client, getting the car to you, possibly easy to mistaken the fact that I include the vehicle repair in that journey. Does every garage have that mapped out? So the external, the internal, and then the external again. and what needs to happen. So what does happen? Now, everyone will go, well, it's obvious. Well, write it down, do a flow chart, and then put people in the flow chart, and then look at their job descriptions. You haven't got any, have you? So if you listen to this and you haven't got those detailed, and I mean detailed job descriptions, add to the job descriptions the person description, the qualifications, the type of people, and then their roles and responsibilities, and then their accountabilities, which aren't the same things. Have you got that for every one of those steps in your business? Now that seems like a huge task, but you don't have to do it all at once. You could map it out and then start fiddling with it, because you need to take, in my opinion, as the business owner, off around about 3 days a month minimum to do work on the business. But if you can't take 3 days a month off to do that, you've got a problem. And I don't think buying a garage management system will fix that problem to begin with. So that is a great starting point. If you don't have that, probably there's the first place.
Yeah, it is the first place. So diagnosing or mapping out your ideal, what you anticipate. Because again, I think with the organic growth of a garage business, what we've set out to do when we were 1, 2, 3, and 4, when we get to 8, 9, 10, and 11, of course, we've adapted the processes. We maybe haven't redrafted them, and as space becomes an issue, we kind of find a way to manage cars in and out, in and on and off site. And we know there's a rush at front of house in collection and drop off, so we kind of adapt some of the roles and responsibilities and have lots of people doing two things. Yeah, I guess if you've not mapped the process flow from the business, even at a base level, so if somebody said, "How does your business work?" you can pull out a sheet of A4 and walk them through the journey of the customer interaction internal and the internal process flow of the car for a standard job. I guess that's where you know that you haven't probably got enough detail. And as you say, once you've got that basic backbone of the structure of how you'll find the varieties of jobs then, won't you? So your core process of resources you've got inside the factory are static, but they can be ramped up. So if you get a major engine job, you're applying a different person to that. You're applying a bay and some other stuff to it. If it's a service and maintenance job, that has a slightly different process flow through the factory. And, there are sub processes within the repair process that can be mapped as well. But if you started with a vanilla service and MOT job, you should be able to have that documented relatively quickly, because you do it all the time. And that's the start point, isn't it? I think that is the beginning point where then you can maybe, as you've indicated, overlay where your team members are involved, where each of the processes, and the way I love to think about processes, there are two nodes. There's a beginning part, and then there's an end bit where it finishes that, and in between there's a joining line. And those processes have got edges. So the edges between one thing and the next is kind of the interface with who makes it move to the next stage. And it can be as simple as dots on a paper with an arrow, and then the stages are just simply dots. And when you've got all the dots in place and you can work it out, you put your people above the dots who are involved with transitioning edge to edge. And for me, that becomes important because we've mentioned the P word, we mentioned people, and people and process are kind of really, really interlinked. And as we've indicated, you could have a bad process that's masked by a great person. And people run on different things than processes run. So process is a kind of a flow, a static. It's a unemotional, very logical thing. But people are not that way. What part do you think communication comes into that, and about either great communication masking processes or a great process being broken by poor communication? I think the communication factor in processes is probably quite critical as well.
Yeah, and it's probably that it enters not just the human element. It's how you are communicating. Things like the job that's coming to the technician. How does that technician know what's happening? Have you ever thought about, as the business owner, what the week looks like for your staff? how do they feel about the jobs that they're getting, and how do they receive that job? So if you take that as a basic communication level, okay, so let's take a technician. He loves doing timing belts, and he hasn't had one for 2 months, and every time he gets a job he doesn't like. Why is that happening? Could be a question. But how are you, as the business, giving the technician the job? Does he get it electronically? Yeah, and then goes and gets the keys, or do you give him you're doing the Fiesta, and then he gets the keys, drives the Fiesta in, then look, oh God, it's a job he doesn't want to do, or doesn't enjoy doing, or a job that he would maybe need support doing, but nobody's thinking of these things, and that's a basic element of communication, because that can be done in a number of different ways, possibly on your process. It is, as you say, it could be an arrow. We've given that person a job. Have you ever considered how that person receives the job, how that is communicated to that person, and how that may make them feel? And I know that seems a bit, like, ooh, it's a bit, we're getting really into some nitty gritty here, but that's how people operate, that's how they work. And you could probably change that person's outlook on coming to work by changing a simple piece of communication. Or it could be, someone at front of house whose job is really dealing with people and their problems, and that's all they do all day, and that must get tiring, isn't it? I mean, do you ever get that person to give someone the good news? Because as the garage owner, you love giving the good news, and are you guilty of that? And it's a really small thing. Is the person at front of house dealing with the problems and the bad news, and at the end of the day you're there happy and smiling and giving them their car back working, and they don't get to share that, giving the customer the good news? They're two tiny little examples of how looking at communication and the process and the people all together could change outcomes for your staff. You're probably, and this is what happens, we're all too busy doing it to think about how we do it.
Yeah, it's working, and it's kind of working after a fashion. And this is where we start the discussion. It's working after a fashion, and generally things are going all right. We're making money, and customers are going, and they're relatively happy. But we get that feeling in our nether regions that something isn't quite right, and we're thinking a management system might do it. Yeah, back to that root cause analysis. It's really, yeah, doing I'm going to say, I don't want to say the word audit, but doing a review of processes and people, as a base level of where is your uncomfortableness as a garage owner emanating from? Is it going to be fixed by a garage management system? Well, I suppose the logical part of me would say I don't have enough evidence to process that to a conclusion. So I've got a desire and a feeling I want a new management system, but unless I've mapped processes, unless I understand where the pinch points are, and is that people, is that process, I can't conclude realistically that the solution is a new system. Um, and I don't know, when I get the feeling that talking to people that have done it and the people that are thinking about doing it, that they've gathered enough evidence to be able to make a sensible judgment call that that's the answer. Um, and I think the irony also is there, Andy, a little bit, that if you have a broken process or communication issues with the people and it's sort of working, but people are cobbling together, what is the impact of dropping now in on top of a broken process and a completely new piece of software? Just just thinking about that, is that going to make people feel much happier? Especially if those guys and girls know the root cause of why the existing business doesn't work, but they're not empowered to share that upwardly with the governor. They've tried to mention it, and he's sort of said no, we just do it like this because we need to. What reluctance, I suppose, to adoption of a new system is there going to be from the people if they know it's a process issue, not a software issue? And how do you, as a garage owner, get in front of that and do your due diligence and do your diagnosis to evaluate that? Because what level of success might you hope to achieve with new software if everyone but you knows it's not a software issue?
Yeah, it's quite a long question there, and I don't know if I can answer it. But basically, it comes down to culture within the business in the first place. If you have an open culture where people can be radically candid, which is a great book if anyone's looking for a book to read, and they can speak, they can criticize you and you can criticize them, and you all know that you're all working together to improve something, and you're all working towards continuous improvement through that, then you're probably not in that position because you already know, because people are telling you. If you decide one day to come in and tell everybody in the business we're changing something, and it's something as big as the garage management system, you can't expect everybody to want to get in the same boat as you, because one, there's probably someone there that's just about got to grips with the last one, and they're going, and I've got to learn this. There's going to be something new, something there. And not only that, if you think about how this typically happens, and you know, I've heard this so many times, it's quite funny. What happens then is you run the two systems in parallel. So if someone's already stressed in terms of their work and the amount of work they're doing, they're now doing more of it because they've got to run both of them. And you know, there are many cases where people are still reverting back. They've got the old failsafe, they've got the paper diary still, and now they're probably running an electronic garage management system, and then you've replaced it with another one. So now they're running, if you like, three things at the same time. How do you think they're going to feel? And if you, as the business owner, have you thought about that? And if they know that none of this is going to fix the underlying problem, and it could be, the underlying problem could be you, the garage manager, or the garage owner, or the person two levels above the person that knows where the fault lies, you're not changing anything, and all you're going to do is make work probably a little bit more uncomfortable for that person in the short term, and then they're probably thinking, well, we'll do this for a while, and then in a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, we'll be learning a new one. When we know what we need to fix is out there, or there's there's a person fix or a process fix that would prevent all of this having to happen. And I think it comes back to one thing, and it's the culture within the business. Have you got an open, an honest, and safe place where people can say and have that sort of confidence to say, look, this isn't working because, and then you can all sit down and go, right, how can we fix that, as opposed to changing something else again, if it's an again, or looking at something for the first time and say, well, you know, if we change this and we get in these metrics now, things will get better. Well, just because you're getting different data doesn't change what creates the data, which is the people and processes and the communication, which is essentially what you need to fix. And it comes back again. And if you don't know what those are, and you don't know what really good would look like for your facilities, then how can you ever improve them?
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, you don't know if your issue, if your road to nirvana is your internal processes that are going to be supported or hindered by a new system. And I guess where you could get confused with a garage, as a manager or prospective purchaser of a system, I suppose in a way, secretly, you might be hoping that the new system has a way of doing stuff which improves the way you currently do it. And you're kind of you're throwing yourself onto the fire there a bit, going, we don't really know what we're doing here. We sort of know it works, but we know there are problems and issues because we're having these, failures and exceptional events which we have to manage. Do you think it's easy to look at a system and go, that's the answer because I can see these shiny screens, I can see it does this and it gives me that and it gives me the other and it reports this and it sends a reminder here and it does that. That's what we need to do. We need that system to give us the structure. But that's dangerous because you then lost, your existing system that you think or you hope to work to doesn't work. You're being dragged by the system to do something that may not be right for you. So I think we've circled back round to actually you have to understand and fix your core process and your internal systems to really have make that judgment call whether it's going to be adaptable to the new software. And you're absolutely right. The humanistic reluctance to support the boat rowing or the direction of travel, because if you're internally harboring this, it's not a software issue. It's a process issue. It's we've all got too much to do and there's no clear path. And when this happens, we just all manage. And they know in their heart of hearts that's not going to be fixed by a piece of software. That's in some way, I suppose, goes towards the reluctancy that you often hear about employees in the garage, so the team members rejecting, and you kind of look at it sideways going, you're rejecting the new system. And as a garage owner, you go, I can't see why these people won't just insert, adoption of system X, Y, and Z. That's indicative, isn't it, that communication hasn't been open and honest, and it's you've foisted something as a change agent without really talking to the people that are the real agents of change.
Yeah, and it sometimes I think it can be wishful thinking, in as much as you see the solution to your problem as being external, and you're projecting your problems to an external thing, because as we're human, and we all are, we can't believe it's something to do with us or something we built. So therefore, it's got to be an external thing. It can't be us, and it can't be the way we do it. It must be. So we get something else, and because it's a garage management software system, what we think is it's going to manage our garage. Well, garages are managed by people, not software. Software basically are an aid to management. And if you've already fallen down in managing processes and people and communication and customers, then nothing's going to change. You may have a different dashboard. I've always liked Saab's look on these things, and that is when it's difficult to drive at night, you get less information, not more. And I talk about it a lot. What is the most important number in your business? And that's the one you need to focus on. Having more numbers to look at can often deflect from the real problem. And if a problem is flagging up, what happens with a Saab at night is that gauge lights up.
Yeah.
And often it's not the gauge; it's just a warning light, because that's all you actually need. This is going wrong. Your speed is, and if speed is the most important number when you're driving along at night, everything else is a distraction. And I think that's often what it can become, a distraction from the real issue or the thing you should be focusing on. And what they often, or what businesses don't often do is, and I said it right again, is root cause analysis of the problem. But you can't do that if you don't know there's a problem. And what I ask people to do often is look at their business in a way, is what is the thing you need to fix first? What is the one thing you need to look at? And in my experience, having done this exercise a number of times with garages, quite a few times now, is it's something far more fundamental than a piece of software, and it's something within them, within the business or within the people or within the process that probably needs a tweak, not even a full change. And once you get that bit right, you then look at the next thing and then the next thing until everything's working together with a degree of synergy. And then you've got an idea of whether or not, when you look at the different packages that are out there, and they're all strong in different areas if you look at them and you take time to analyze them, because as always, the lazy human way of doing it is ask your mate in the business who's in a similar business to you which one he uses, because his business is bound to be exactly the same as yours, isn't it?
Yeah.
With the same people, same process. It's not, is it? So asking somebody else what they use is an almost a giveaway. It's a red flag to me that person probably doesn't understand what's going on in enough detail in their business to make this decision, and they may buy something that's wholly unsuitable for them at that time because they need something possibly a little bit simpler, or they may need something a little bit more complicated. You don't know because they're asking somebody else. So yeah, it is interesting though when you until you know what's wrong, until you've done that, until you've worked it out, will the thing that you're buying match your processes? Will it give you the information you want? Or just because you have the information, does that mean then you have the processes to change those numbers, or those numbers stay the same? In the end, you turn them off anyway, and you stop looking at them because you're not getting the result you want.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's the really interesting thing popped into my mind there is about specification. So how do you know that your system's going to match your business? Is that you have to have your business needs have to be identified firstly, don't they? And so you go, these are the things that we need to do. These are the things, the areas that we're sort of struggling with. Is that process, is that people, is that system, garage management system solvable? And I think that part of the root cause analysis, which is developing as we're going along, is identifying if you have a pinch point, which one of those things is it? And if it's definitely a garage management system thing that your garage management system can't do, there's a tick in the box for we ought to look at least for a system that can do this. But knowing that it is not solvable by people or process. So you have a malfunction in your process. It's a going, well, the root cause is X and the solution has to be Y, where Y might not be a system. It might be a process change. It might be more people. It might be fewer people. It could be a different operational procedure. And I think for me, I think buying a system and systems that we buy here for other stuff, that's what we do. We look at where are we struggling to achieve our outcome that we need? Is that an us? Is that a people? Is that a process? Or is that software not capable of doing it? Because I often think of it like the driver of a car has never read the handbook. The handbook, hours have gone into be spent into writing that handbook, so the driver of the car knows how the car works. And they kind of grumble and mumble that the car won't do, and they didn't know this button, third one along from the right, turns that annoying noise off when you start to park it. And they're going, I'm changing the car because it makes a bloody horrid noise when I hang on a bit, but you invested zero time in understanding the system, because we are creatures of habit, and with any software package, there are buttons on your keyboard that are shinier for certain functions because you like to use them, and the other functions that are probably awesome aren't obvious at the outset because they're a bit more detailed, they're a bit more valuable, they need a bit more research to work out what they can do for you. And we kind of follow along the path most well trodden, and we don't investigate those things. And I think I'm building a picture that a garage owner sees process problems because he's mapped it, sees the issue, and then just tries to define, which one of the things he would change to give him that option. And is that available in my existing system, or is that one of because that list then becomes a must have, doesn't it, in your system selection for your new provider? We definitely know we've got this issue. We've definitely analysed it's not people and process. We've definitely analysed our system can't do it. Ching, there's a requirement now for my purchase or my investment.
Yeah, and it's interesting, I often ask people to define performance. What's performance? And one of my best definitions I've ever read was done by the All Blacks, and they said performance is ability plus behaviour. And that sort of sums it up for me. So you have the ability, but you have the right behaviours, is often what it comes down to when you analyse these things. So take something simple like you don't like the fact that certain technicians on the shop floor don't fill in a vehicle health check sheet. Do you think giving them a pen instead of a stylus is going to change that? It's the performance, ability, or behaviour. And often, because we're human, you have to take account of that behavioural situation. And how do you fix behaviour? How do you incentivize someone to do something that they don't see as important? And could a garage management system do that, or could managing people do that? And there are obviously the lines are blurred with any of these things, and I it's one of the things I really bang on about is systemization within a business. And one of the reasons I talk about it is because as the business owner, it affords you freedom And one of the reasons, there's only really two reasons why people went self-employed, is that it was for time or financial freedom. That's most people do it. Yes, we might have been annoyed by our own boss when we made the decision, but actually we were sold on the dream of time and financial freedom. And what we actually end up with is something that we actually end up working longer hours for less money. And that seems crazy. And one of the ways out of that trap, which is covered in the E-Myth, great book by Michael Gerber, is systemizing your business. And I can't say enough how much more important it is to systemize than it is the systems that do it. And for me, that is key, absolutely key. Yes, we need the systems, but without a properly systemized business, you won't know, one, what systems you need, and or two, how to interface those systems into your systemized business. So if you want to know if you've got a systemized business, take a month off.
Yeah.
And you said about identifying, the kingpins within your business. What happens if they, break a leg? They're off for 8 weeks, can't come into work. What would happen to your business? Just picture it. Tell them to, and if you want to know, tell them to go and job share with someone else, and watch how many things fall over and how quickly. And the great thing about that is they'll have a greater understanding of what someone else is doing, and then get someone to job share with them. And it might take 3 or 4 people to cover all of the things that person does. And then you'll start to get an idea of their actual job role, what they actually do outside of their job role. And then you might start to think about, actually what I need here is not another A star, but 2 maybe less capable individuals that I'm not so dependent upon.
Yeah.
And that only comes about through understanding your business and it's a real fundamental level. And you can't do that when you're still there. You have to take a ride in the helicopter, and you have to go up and you have to look down. Yeah. And I would say, if you want that time and financial freedom from a business, you have to be able to take a month off, and that's a month completely off. And I'm speaking from a position of relative experience. I've replaced myself in my business twice. I currently don't go there, and as far as I'm aware, my phone's not ringing every 10 seconds. So maybe I've managed to remove myself from my business by a process of systems and systemization, and that includes, the human element as well as a software element. We can't do it you can't run a modern business, certainly a complicated business like a garage, without the help of software, various softwares, not just one. So, and then I can, whenever I want, I can click a button and I can see what's happening in my business, because a garage management system allows me to do that. And they can reach out to me without having to ring me and just leave a message, and I can pick it up and I can deal with it when I have time. And I'm not saying it's perfect or what I've done is perfect, but I'm not there today, and it's still working. Can you say the same? And until you get to that position, you've got work to do on your systemization, which may include systems. But I think the key thing is building a systemized business, because the great thing about that is it allows you to do it again and again and again, should you want to. I have no desire to have a multi-site business. It's never been my dream. I like to go and do what I need to do when I need to do it, to scratch my automotive itch still, and have a play with some fast cars and a racing car. But that's it for me. But if you do want to look at how this is done, look at any of the franchised businesses, because that's ultimately, if you could turn your business into a franchise, you've won as a small business owner. And can you do that with software alone? No. And that's the key. And so I would say that would be a great question to ask someone who's looking at it. What are you hoping the software is going to achieve? Is it going to give you more time and financial freedom, or is it going to tie you up for more? And if that equation doesn't balance, fix the one side and then allow the software to improve your systems, as opposed to being the improver.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, and of course, the ultimate financial freedom from a systemized business is that you can sell it to someone else because it works without you being there. So your exit plan, the bigger long-term positive about processization and mapping and making sure it works is if you're not there, somebody else could basically take over the reins and also not be involved, because investors in businesses want a return on the investment. They don't want another job. They want a standalone business that spins off cash, and that can only happen without the involvement of the owner. I think interesting if we cascade that down a bit, Andy, there are great parallels. You picked the sporting example of performance there. And if we look at teams, so if you look at a business as a team, if you look at a business going into battle in a competitive match, they don't just have a bare 15 players. They'll have the key roles that are quite difficult will be either covered by a unique specialist, or a utility player who can do one or two things. So your back row might be able to cover two or three of those positions. He might also be able to play centre. Your fullback can also probably play centre and or wing, and you'll have a reserve that is probably, utility forward that can hook, and he could probably play back row. You've got the core roles in your team covered by your substitutes. Now, they don't have to be redundant and not used, but in your business, you can have secondary roles for your primary candidates to ensure that you can cover those potential other roles. And I think garage owners generally, because they've set up the business, tend to be their own subs bench, and they can be called upon. Rather than a substitute, we've taken the player off. We've actually now got 16 players on the pitch. So your bare 15 aren't really effectively executing the job. Somebody's doing two or three jobs. One of the players covering two roles, and you're also on the pitch covering, a multitude of other roles, because you haven't got that ability, and the execution from your players that you're. It's a sort of early indication that processization doesn't work. But much like you've also said, can the garage owner take a month off? Well, can your business survive if some of your A players take a month off as well through injury? It's another great one. Have you got the roles covered? Do other people know? Let's imagine you could bring a resource from an agency. The agency worker is going to want to sit there for the first 20 minutes going through your process manual, and they're going to start working against the operation manual that you've given them because they don't know your business. They should be able to slot in, work out what's involved. If they're a competent operator in that field, all they're looking for is the differences in your process to the industry standard accepted processes that you do this in this point. If that doesn't exist, you don't have that systemization. Another indication of the systemization is going to be key. And again, I can't see, if we go back to the original question, do we really need a new management system? If some of those fundamental questions can't be answered as yes, the new system that you're thinking about is probably decision 4 or 5. You're not even in the ballpark of thinking about a new system yet, are you? You're so far away from that's going to solve it, because dumping a new system onto a shabby process is like putting a new body on a rusty chassis, isn't it? It's going to look great. Everyone's going to look over and go, look, they're doing the awesome thing, but it's just not going to work, is it?
No, and it's so tempting though to make a change, to give the illusion of progress, and actually, are you making any progress, or are you further demoralizing the people on your staff? And although you feel great about it, do they? And it comes back to that, it fundamentally, unless you're a sole trader, you have to take into account the opinions and the considerations of the people you work with, your team. And you just obviously use the rugby analogy there. I used the All Blacks earlier on. I think the role you missed out of the business owner when he comes on as the 16th player, he's also the referee.
Yeah, that's right.
which is absolutely crazy. So if you look at that and you look at, all right, so and you think, all right, I've got key roles and kingpins in my business that I need to protect. Well, do you have an internal mentoring system? As a who's got where in your business, for what and how? Has it happened because there's been a plan and and does the apprentice starting at 16 knows he can become the chief operating officer of this business at some point? Does he know that? Or have you just taken on an apprentice? Does he have any ambition at all? I know you're probably thinking it's just an apprentice, but have a look where just about every single person that's on the shop floor was probably an apprentice once. I know I was. So that doesn't mean that you can't be saying, what are your wider goals and the path, and have a pathway, an identified pathway to get there. Whether I was fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know. But when I left school, shortly after that, I joined the forces. And one of the things you knew when you joined the army was the rank structure. And you knew where you were, but you also knew where you could get to. And you also knew what it took to get there, because it's almost, it's told to you, it's explained. If you work really hard and don't get in trouble, you could be and this is where it goes. Do we have that? Do we do that as a trade? When we take the apprentice in, do we ever say to him, do you in one day this could all be yours? They might look at that and go, Christ. But you could say, do you want to be a master technician? Because the route is this: you get to your level 3, you prove competence, you start doing some courses, and you're 16, but by 20, whatever you want to, time frame you put up, probably 10 years, be a good time, knuckle down. By the time you're 26, before you're 30, you could be a master tech. A master tech right now, real key individual in this business, because it's that guy over there you keep asking all the questions to. And you now know that in 10 years, the guy that's starting is that guy. So the guy that's been with you 3 years is 7 years away from there, but he's probably 2 years away from starting a Diag tech journey. If that's his speciality, he might want to do something else. He might want to go and do recovery. Have you asked them? Do you have processes in your business? And because what you can then do, you can start shadowing the right people with the right people. So when that king ping goes off, you now have someone who can, fill in. Or you might have a couple of people who can fill in, because they're not going to be as competent as the star performer, but they are going to be star performers if you encourage and nurture and provide the pathway. And unless you do that, unless you're conscious of the effects, because I know what happens in quite a few garage businesses is one day the star performer comes in and says, I'm leaving or I'm retiring, and there's a huge void. And that's the same if you look at front of house. Is there that you might include in there the overall manager of the business or of the garage, if it's not the whole thing, and does the person who's just been taken on as an apprentice in that role know how to and what they need to do and what competencies they need to display to move to the next level, to one day be running the front of house operations and the operational side of the business? And you might have somebody who goes more on the HR people route, and you might have another route that's more financial, and they're going to be the chief financial officer or whatever and however you lay out. So even if you start with the ideal organizational chart of your business, at least you can show the newcomer all of that. And where do you want to get to? Because we can help you. We're going to provide you with the training, the support, and identify where you are now and what you need to change to get there. And unless you have those, and that's a nice place to start as well. If you're talking, I talked right at the beginning about roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities. If you know where all the possible roles are, and then you can start putting. And when I did this first, I color coded the boxes because there's only 2 of us, so they were either red or blue. And broadly speaking, we manage the people that are blue or red between myself and my business partner, and just because I don't go there every day doesn't mean I'm not still a manager or actively managing people, because I still do. There are other people now between me and all of the other people, but I manage the managers. So, and once you know that organizational structure must map to the processes of how work flows through the business. And it's easy to think, all right, it's all about, because I talked about customers and customers leaving and everything in between. It's easy to look at the car bit, isn't it? But what about the other elements, and all of that needs looking at in an objective way, the way you go, right, well, we haven't got that role, so who's doing it, or do we need that role yet? Are we big enough? But it might be that when we replace or when we promote someone, we know what we need in terms of the job description, the person specification. All of that stuff is so much easier when you've written it all down and you can look at it, because then when you put the job out there, it isn't, does anyone know a mechanic?
Yeah, that's right.
Who's looking for a job? You can actually write down, because you may have, a specific skill set that that you need in your business, that someone out there may have, who loves, and I said earlier on, someone who just loves doing those deep, complicated, more, taking an engine out, doing the chains on some complicated V6, and that's somebody else's idea of absolute hell. And you just advertising for a mechanic, but actually, are you this person? And this is the traits that make someone great at doing that. Is the forensic level of detail I think we need to go into with the people specification to get the right people working for us. Otherwise, we'll just get a mechanic, and that is part of systemizing your business as opposed to having a system for your business, because that I think they're the key differences. Is once you know that, you can, it doesn't matter what you're looking for, you can get the right fit for your business, and that's key. I think.
It is key. The right bums on the right seats doing the right sort of job. But so you're absolutely right. If you look at symptomatic or emblematic of that at the moment, if you look at job adverts for mechanics, and you're thinking that I see garage, adverts on all over the place, and I'm thinking you need a superhero. You want somebody that's good at Diag, that can do service cam belt, clutches and transmissions and engine jobs, that's also an MOT tester. And I'm going, whoa, you what you've said is all the gaps you've got in your business, you're trying to find one person, the superhero, and you kind of can't find basic mechanics at the minute, let alone those superheroes. And that's a really good, I suppose, an analytical tool that you could use if you've got gaps in your business as a garage owner. Can you be quite definitive about what it is you're actually looking? What is the type of person you're looking for? So what's your person spec? And then what's the job spec? So in your business, what do they need? Where do they fit? And how they're interfacing or processing in that process? But we sort of circle round there to humans and people in businesses, because the strength of a business obviously is the strength of the team, and the team ethos is working together. We highlighted a little bit that we can have process issues, we can have a communication issue when implementing change. So the new system coming in can get resistance if people haven't been bought into the change. But you're going to, I suppose, in an analytical point of view of process issues, they may not be, the sequence of events that happens in the garage may be documented, but VHCs you picked on there earlier, Andy, which is a great one. VHCs aren't being completed because really the guys on the shop floor haven't bought into the process of why VHCs are critical and the reasons they're critical. So they're critical for the owner to make sure that their vehicle's safe and well maintained. They're critical for the business. So from a duty of care, when the garage has taken custody of that vehicle and is letting it back out again, they're doing so in a safe manner, or if there are exceptions, that the client's been made aware of that. And from the bigger business perspective, in terms of generating generating revenue that's profitable, that ensures everyone's got a job this week, next week, and the month after. I think it's a really interesting point about where the communication from the garage owner that wants that done has really poorly implemented the fact. And I think your sage advice that you could replacing the pen with the stylus doesn't change any of the reasons why we do it. And I do feel that's particularly one area, VHCs and the ability to have that passed from workshop to front of house, and automatically, then pricing up the jobs and then automatic authorization. The garage owner's going, that would solve our problems with converting VHCs. And you go, well, you're not converting VHCs because you're not doing them. And that's a really interesting process analysis of you've got your processes in place, but your people aren't bought in and they don't realize it. You're not managing it well. And you're thinking you're going to offboard that whole, it's going to be better, to a decision to purchase a system.
Yeah, and that is it is a good example. It's something as simple as that, and I would add to the sort of, on a sort of slightly wider front to the VHC. What about the post-repair VHC? I mean, who's doing the QA in the business? Is it actually happening? And is that a process that you don't do, or you do? But is it neatly tied to something? And you might find that if a garage management system includes that, and the job can't be effectively signed off unless somebody does a quality assurance check, which checks, I mean, no car should leave a garage without the owner being aware of at least the condition of their tyres, their lights, their windscreen, and their wipers. And if you're looking at revenue this time of year, a battery check, because the customer's perception is simply this: I took it to the garage, it must be okay.
Yeah.
They came in for that hadn't for something a track rod end, but that must mean that everything else is okay because it's been to the garage.
And they didn't mention anything else. Yeah, they didn't say anything else. No.
And if you think about protecting your relationship with that customer, you've got obviously people who will take advantage. If you've got a vehicle health check that doesn't identify a cracked windscreen, and then you do a QA, and the QA picks up a cracked windscreen, who broke it?
Yeah.
And so you go back to that human element. So you've got the technician is literally ticking the boxes, whether that be with a pen or a stylus, it makes no difference at this stage, because he doesn't understand how important doing that job diligently is. One, he possibly isn't, he needs some therapy, or he's probably not the right fit for that business. Because if you're doing, pre and post vehicle health checks, is the way I look at it. And he's just going through the motions. You've got an issue, because now you're probably panicking. Did the crack happen while it was in? Did someone drop something onto the screen? You're now looking through hours of CCTV and the time wasted because somebody didn't notice a cracked windscreen, because they weren't, they are literally, they don't understand why we're doing this and how it, and the reasons why, and that it might not even be a person problem. It might be a communication problem. We haven't said why this is so important, and why the person, or someone might be looking and going, why is someone always checking my work? And if you explain why, and you say to the person who's having his work checked, well, you'll be checking his work. So there's parity, there's fairness.
Yeah.
You may have, and you, as you say, you go back to that job description, and the person specification and all of that. Are you bringing into your business people who are happy for that to go on? Because I know there are some prima donnas out there that won't have anyone check them. No one's checking my work, and you can see that you can, by implementing systems and being I've got this great idea, we're gonna do this. no reasoning or no, and somebody else might be going, and you've got that resistance to any change you implement is going to result in resistance. We're creatures of habit. Unless you give them great justifications and reasons, and ask and have an open forum and ask for feedback as to whether or not this is the right thing for us as a team, as a group, then be prepared for that resistance. And even simple things like do you need, and this is just a question, if you're not doing vehicle health checks and you're not doing quality assurance of every vehicle that comes in and out of your business, can you implement that without changing your garage management system? And the simple answer is yes. If your current garage management system doesn't allow you to record those, and then the communication element to the front of house where they can, as you say, quickly price up a job and say, we've noticed this while it's here, we can do this afternoon, you can have your vehicle back, this is how much it will cost, do you want authorization? Send that electronically if that's the case. No need of a phone call, text message, all of those things, and you go, you know what, my current one doesn't do that, I'd like to have that, I think that's a worthwhile. You have identified a reason to change garage management system, yes, and you're probably going to implement a system and improve your systemization. Because I don't think what we're saying here is you shouldn't change, but you should be very aware about why you need to change, and what frustrations it may bring, and also what benefits it may bring. So but what I definitely know is changing garage management systems will not improve the systemization of your business. That is the two things are linked, but they're not the same.
Yeah, they're interdependent, but they are independent. So systemization versus and you're right. You're awesomely right to mention that, Andy, about features and benefits. So there are lots of cases where it is right for the garage to change to a system because there are features that they need that aren't available or not active in their existing system. You've also got to look at features and anti-benefits. In fact, that you might change your system that now is doing less in one area than your existing system does. And that scoping document really, or specification over what have we got that works really well. And that's almost like, well, does the existing system have that and does it work in that way? Because that could be a yes or a no. Looking for gaps that you've got in your existing system. Does it do some of that really clever stuff that you want to improve your processes? Yes, it does. Great. And making sure that overall, your 4 key features that you want to implement because they're going to help your process don't end up being compromised somewhere else. And the net gain is actually you're 2% behind where you started off, but now you've got a new system. And I think that specification of a feature analysis, feature to feature, again, is a very worthwhile thing to do. But you might find in searching for features that your existing system does it, you just didn't know. Nobody's shown you. I'll take the training piece on the chin that you didn't really undergo full system training when that system was implemented, and you've learned it. I think understanding what features you need for the business benefit are absolutely critical. I'll give you a really good example of that, which isn't specific to any particular system, but is indicative of a feature that we would all think we would need. And going back to the analogy of the SAB dashboard, where the lights are switching off, only the key metric is being shown, sort of drops into this thing where some of the systems have the ability to poll the clients that have been there this week with a client report feedback form. And that gives the garage like a warm feeling whether they're on target with what their service offering is. We get the 8s, the 9s, and the 10s where we're promoting and we're happy with that business. We get the lower end where the feedback from those clients is a bit cool, and you've got something to work on. Now, in a recent discussions, part of our the marketing training that we do, we were analysing client feedback, external and internal. We would consider that an internal feedback mechanism because the reviews aren't used by Google or somewhere else. So it's an indicative feedback mechanism, but it's an internal one that you can share with your team that you're doing an awesome job. 98% of respondents are coming back as positive. The external one, the Google ones, are great for other business selectors, or getting you in the position in new clients where they're going to choose you. And we did some analysis, and we had some feedback from some of the people on the course that said, "Yeah, look, our reviews on our internal system are showing us here at 88, not 89, 90, 91. We've moved that over the last period into being great." And I said, yeah, that's awesome. So let me just ask you what. And so they're going, and our system enables us to do that. One of the reasons we've got it is it's awesome, and we're getting that back automatically. And they're living in a bubble. They think that's awesome. And I said, well, of the percentage of 100 people that come into your business, what percentage use that mechanism to give you feedback? 11. Oh, right. Okay, great. What do the other 89% think? And there were tumbleweeds. They'd been blinded by the one light on the dashboard that was on, and they were taking that feedback as we're in the high 90s. We're in the 90% of positive feedback. And I just said, well, the people that are a bit pissed off with what you've done won't leave you a feedback, and that may be tacit indication that you're below a 1. They can't even be asked to tell you how shit you did, because they're not filling in your feedback form, because the entire experience is rubbish. And that, for me, sums up a feature within a system that you can be lulled into the information it's delivering, because it drops it in feedback's awesome, the scores are up here on the doors. But you, in your own system, your system, not the system, has kind of overlooked the 90% that aren't responding. And you're blindsided by the data.
And that's another thing, isn't it? It's knowing what you're looking at when you get data, and being able to separate, the data that's a bit like wetting yourself on a cold Monday morning, isn't it? Because it feels good initially, but when actually you wait a while and you start to look at it in a bit more detail, it's probably not that good a thing. But I think when you look at what's being presented to you, often the garage management system want to give you that feel-good factor, don't they? They want you, make you feel like you're doing a great job. But the danger is, if you're only looking at 11% of your customers, the majority could be relatively cool,
neutral.
But in my mind, what could you be doing? Sorry?
I said, in my mind, the primary report there should be the number of respondents feeding back as a percentage ought to be the big number, and the small number ought to be the rating. Yeah, and
absolutely. And if you're not aware of that, it just looks really good, doesn't it? And you can't improve for the vast majority of your customers. You can't be doing the thing that would get them motivated to give you a review. I talk about the winning welcome, managing the middle, and something I like to call engineering the end for a positive outcome for customers. And if you focus on a number that's should we say not representative of actually what's happening, then you'll never try and improve any of those things within your business, because you just look at that and go, "Oh, that's good. I'm doing really, really well," And that, I think that's why, and we said it earlier on, and I said, you've got to know what the most important number for your business is. And your most important number might be the number of people who can be bothered to respond. Or your most important number might be the number of people who return. How many return customers do we have? Is that a more important metric? The problem is, if you use a system that delivers a generic set of metrics, because they work for most people, and you need something specific. If you're speccing a garage management system, can I tailor the metrics? Can I have on my dashboard what I want, or do I get all of this stuff and then I've got to fudge around to get something else? I really don't know. I've only ever had experience of a couple of garage management systems, and primarily what I want from them is it to work with my invoicing software. It's probably the most essential thing. So does my invoices go to my accounting software? If it doesn't do that, for me, that is, so when you say about speccing it, that would be my number one. If it did all those hundreds of cool things, but it didn't do that, it'd be out for me because I need that. But until you know what you need from that system, you can't spec it. So you end up with something probably unsuitable, or something that can do way more than you need, and you probably have a cost implication there, where you've got a system in your business that's feature and function heavy, and you're using it to write invoices and an electronic diary. You could have probably done that with Google for free, as the two extremes, if you like. So until you understand what's required, you can't actually make a decision. You don't understand what's required until you understand your business, and within your business, the people, the processes, and probably the paths of communication, because they're the three key fundamental things that a good garage management system will tie together for you. But if you haven't got those underlying fundamentals of process, people, and communication, it doesn't really matter what garage management system you buy. It's never going to fix that.
No. No, no, indeed, very, very sage words there. Yeah, sage discussions. Yeah. So I think kind of summarizing then, making sure your processes are in tip-top order, that you at least know what they are, what you're looking to get from them. Probably specking your team, that your team are doing the jobs that you think they're doing, that you need them to do. They're not overdoing, they're not underdoing. They buy into your vision and your values, and they're performing well. Consulting with those guys if there are business issues, to see where is the fix, where are we going wrong here, what do we need to be doing, coming up with your key features that you need. If you're thinking this is what we need to do to solve that problem, poke in your existing system to go, you definitely can't do this stuff, can you? It's not an us issue, it's a system issue. And if it is, then you've got your specification, I suppose, to select going forward what you need from your new system, remembering it's not only the new stuff you need, but it's preservation of old functions that you're relying on. So it has to bridge what you're looking to grow into, but supporting what you're already doing. Yeah. So it's this quite a complex set of needs analysis there, isn't there? And a bit of root cause, and specifying, I suppose, specifying your order almost, isn't it? I just want one is probably not enough. You need a few sheets of A4 specifying why. And I think preservation of existing functions and requirements for new are important.
Yeah, and I always like to think of systems as the bridge between the people and the process.
Yeah, yeah,
And if you think of it in that way, you probably, and that's not just a garage management system, that is your business systems. How your business systems need to link the people and the processes within, and then obviously, and you have to have clear and open lines of communication for that to happen. And sometimes the system enables the communication, especially nowadays with its electronic, and that communication is internal as well as external. And external communication also needs to include your marketing, which includes your reviews, which we've just discussed. But it needs to include communicating with the customer, once the prospective customer, an existing customer, and a completed job. All of those, that's the bundle, if you like, and that's what you're looking to do. And if you look at if you think there's a failing somewhere in any of that, I think you need to unpick the whole thing and work out whether it's a system, a process, or a communication failure. And then there's a sublayer to that. Where is that? Is it an internal system, an external system, or is it an internal or an external? And you can start to see that it's really quite complicated. And if you take a simple one size fits all approach to it, you're probably not going to get the right system for you, or you might overspec or underspec. And it's as we've discussed, getting people to change and do this again in a few years because you've made a poor decision now is probably, an not very useful use of your time and your resources.
Yeah. And as we said in the outset, really, and as the business owner or the garage manager who's going to specify the system, they have to have enough time in their calendar to put to specifying the need or the requirement for a new system, and do that due diligence, and have that 3 days a month to be able to do that analysis work, and to come up with I suppose a case, if you've worked in a big corporate, if you ever want to do something, they're looking for you to build a case that supports the change. And I think that's probably a wise position. I used to hate doing it, but saw the value of doing it, because what it did is proving that presenting a case for change actually challenges your assumptions as the agent for change, that you really want to do it, whatever, you're full steam gung ho, go ahead. By building that case, whether you're sharing that with a co-director, whether you're sharing that with a senior member of your team as a business owner, or whether you leave it for a week and come back to it with fresh eyes, I think building a case which includes all the supporting arguments with some evidence that says why that decision might be great, and if you've got a system in mind, why that system's the right choice, would stop those tears of regret. Act in haste and repent at leisure is that very, very old wise saying. I think spending the time to build a case is probably going to help ensure the decision is correct and prevent mistakes. I suppose that's the way of putting it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And doing your due diligence, as it's called nowadays, is very wise, because it's probably something that once it's knitted into the fabric of your business, it's very difficult to unpick your garage management system. So I would say, if you are going to make a change, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and it's the right product, and that what you've already got isn't not going to serve your needs. And if you literally haven't got anything, you're still on the paper diary and writing out invoices, then don't jump in. Just make the decision, I'm going to get a garage management system. Do the same due diligence as if you already had one, because it's going to become, a part and parcel of your business, and you're going to be working with and alongside that software, and maybe even some of the people involved in that business, depending on how involved you want to get with it, for hopefully a long period of time. It's going to be a very beneficial and fruitful relationship. Remember, if you're aiming to grow, make sure that the system you're buying is going to support that growth, because you don't want to unpick it because you've taken on 2 members of staff, and they only support up to a certain number. All of that stuff. Make sure you've got your possibly a 5-year stroke 10-year vision. What's it going to look like? Because it's possibly that kind of long-term relationship ultimately you want from your garage management system, and building the systems within your business and systemizing the business alongside that is probably a key if you're starting the journey. If you're already down that journey, make sure that's really tightly done with you business, so that you can make that decision that this matches all of our essentials, all of our desirables, and some of the real fancy stuff that would be really nice to have if you did it, and have that list, and then compare them all, tick them off, and don't expect it to fundamentally change your business, because it probably won't. The person or the people who are going to change your people are you, and the people within it are going to change your business, not a piece of software.
Yeah, it's a great point. The software is going to give a scaffolding, I think, to enable you to make those positive changes. So if you are changing system in terms of it's a growth opportunity, yeah, some of the features are giving you scaffolding to take advantage of new technology and new growth areas and a different way of doing it. But yeah, like I say, if you've done your due diligence and have selected it, that system will have the scope and the ability to grow with you. Yeah, but making sure that it's not anti-benefiting in some of the stuff you already do. Don't appear in that system, and you've got to radically change your processes. It's a big decision that with a bit of forethought can be done correctly. Can be done in the right way, with that bit of analysis work. And I think Yeah, it's a great conversation piece that we've covered there, Andy, and I appreciate your sage advice and wisdom. I was going to say you do this as part of a network that people can join into. You do your weekly inspirational webinars. Where can guys and girls that might be listening to this tap into your weekly therapy sessions? Anne?
So if they search on Facebook for the Garage Owners Network, they should find it. It is only for garage owners, and you need to answer 3 simple questions to join. If you're not a garage owner and you don't want to join the network, if you've got access to any podcasts, search for the Garage Owners UK podcast, and you can get the same content just a couple of weeks later on there, and you don't have to answer any questions or join a group. So it's available free. Try and do one every week. The aim is to do 200, and we're at 130, I believe, this week. So we've got 70 left. So time's running out. Is it for like 3 years? I think I've been doing it now. Got about 18 months left.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm just going to say, if people haven't listened to it, they're short 15-minute sessions on a topic and a subject that you pick, and you kind of you kick it round as an idea and a concept, and you give some actionable output. So where they're awesome is you pick up on a problem, you talk about the ins and outs of that problem, and then there are actionable steps that guys and girls listening can take. And of course, you've got that huge back catalogue of 130 topics and episodes that people can search on. And if they're struggling with a particular area, they can search through, find the topic that you've covered on that. And it gives I would say, at least it gives the foundation discussion principle for them to work out a plan of action. And I think that's where they're brilliant. They're bite-sized, they're topical, and so they're focused on that subject, then they give the actionable outcome. So, what you're building there is superb. And it's a great service to industry, and you ought to be really proud of that. What you build, or what you're building there, is really awesome. So I would encourage our listeners to hop on if they're not, and to get that tap into your wise words of wisdom.
Yeah, thanks, James.
I just wanted to thank you then formally for giving up your time this morning. I know you're under huge pressure. You've got lots else going on your life, and I appreciate you coming on and kicking around the subject of systems or systemization. It really is a pleasure to spend time with you and to listen to your thoughts and your ideas behind this stuff. And I'm hoping what we've discussed today will help people either make the right decision or kind of stop making the wrong one.
Yeah, hopefully it's been of some help, because if we've made you think about how you run your business and then what you need to do to improve it, then I think we've done our job, James.
Yeah, no, that's it. Absolutely, that's good stuff. Well, and I'll speak to you no doubt shortly. But thanks a million once again for joining us on the Harmonic Motion podcast. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.